I'm Drew Breezy, and this is the Comm Center, the show that dissects 911 calls, emergency response video, and audio by two guys who have done both jobs. Coming up, a hodgepodge of news stories from the first responder world, including the Baltimore bridge disaster, an overview of a mobile crisis team featuring one of the very first callers on the Comm Center, and a tribute to a radio and 911 dispatcher that has hit close to my home. John is going to lean into his presentation on making purple drink that he teaches to his Sunday school classes. And question, what does a Domino's delivery app have to do with a 911 call, including a runaway minivan? Answer, nothing other than we mentioned both in the show. All that and what it means for your weekend on the Comm Center.
City council members have announced their plan to disband the Minneapolis Police Department.
We're calling for defunding the police.
Shootings in New York City have more than doubled this year.
I love that song so much. Wake up, America. It's the Comm Center with Drew Breezy. It's the show on the YouTube where we talk 911 tales and tell cop response. It's also a TV show on the internet about two best friends who have to help an angry police captain find a vanished mother who disappeared during a game of peekaboo. I'm John. I'm an active 911 dispatcher in the field. Joining me as always is Lieutenant Andrew Baxter, retired, formerly of the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, somewhere down in America's Wag. Drew, how are you doing?
I couldn't be better. I'm doing great. I don't know. I could be lying for all you know.
Yeah, wait, no, we're both doing terrible. This is a cry for help, for the love of God. No, I'm doing well. I'm training this week. These many weeks at 911, Drew, and I don't know if you had a robust FTO or CTO program for 911 dispatchers, but training is an extra burden because you have to do your job while also training someone else to do it. And so it's just it's been a busy week. And like at first we didn't have anything going on, so this new person's just like, well, this job's easy, nothing happens. And then it's full bore, Full Metal Jacket, just absolutely terrible things happening, taking calls of suicides over the phones, vehicles flipping in the air, brains exploding. Drew, you're farther away now.
I know.
He's farther away. He's experimenting with cameras.
I'm not experimenting. It's just doing something.
It went insane. Folks, if you wanted to be a part of the Comm Center, you could do so a couple different ways. First of all, you could call our phone number, which is 848-COMM-911. That's 848-266-6911. I haven't got any voicemails from the Wolf Pack or whoever we are in weeks. Sorry, Drew, for a long time from our commies out there, which, by the way, Drew's cameras are going insane. We haven't got any calls from the commies in forever. I think that's in part because of the success of the after show. If you want to be a part of the after show, you should stick around. It's always possible that the after show will happen after the show. I make no promises every single week. If I feel like doing the after show, I'm going to do the after show. And then if I don't feel like doing it, or if our participation in the chats is not very lively, I'll just skip out on the after shows for you. It's a great time where you can call in and offer nothing of substance about the cases that we have managed to study and bring before you every week for your education, your edification, and amusement. Also, if you wanted to reach out to us, you could do so on Instagram. You can reach me at Difficult to Look at Pictures. And if you wanted to talk to Drew alone, if you wanted secure communications from Drew, telling him he needs to get rid of that hanger-on guy, his second banana, you could reach him at What Say Drew. If you wanted either one of us, you could get us at the Comm Center. You're probably going to get Drew when you get that. I log over to that every once in a while, and I'll see that there's been a hanging message for me or something in reference to me, or something asking about if I'm okay or something. And I don't respond promptly to that. But if you want to reach me, you can. It's Difficult to Look at Pictures.
Yeah, if you wanted to secretly tell me to get rid of the second banana, or John, please, tell me discreetly. and we'll talk about Dewey and we'll talk about John.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, John.
I think Dewey. I think if once we have sophisticated AI, I think my image should be replaced with an AI likeness of Dewey. I think you really want to help your search engine optimization, and you want the show to take off. You got to get rid of this mug. We got a couple stories we wanted to bring forward, Drew. I don't know if you wanted to put the story of the bridge collapse up front because it's sort of the big story, or if you want me to continue to flapjack away as your own personal comm center goes insane.
No. I can probably handle this as long as I can get this one thing to do this one thing, and then we'll be.
If you're still flapjacking, I got an ad.
No, I'm not. I'm good. Here, Baltimore has this Francis Scott Key Bridge, and it was slammed into by a cargo ship. Baltimore's port is like one of the busiest ports, like in the United States. They have a high measure of cargo traffic. Think about the position of where Baltimore is. It's a mid-Atlantic, situation. So stuff coming from Europe, it's like pretty accessible. Therefore,
clam chowder.
Yeah. At any rate, yeah, like the good old the Maryland crabs and the clam chowder it's known for. So this cargo ship left the port in the middle of the night. I guess it was like 1-ish in the morning, which is probably a godsend because there wasn't much traffic on the bridge, though it doesn't help the people that were actually on the bridge. And it hit one of the pilings, and you'll see some smoke like in the video that we show here. I got two different little pieces that illustrate what happened, but the experts are saying indications are that they were either trying to the smoke came from either an engine failure or an engine failure because they were overusing the engines trying to navigate away from the piling. But this humongous container ship just smashes into the pilings and the bridge just collapses. The reason I think that this is like relevant to our news, John, is because how many 911 calls do you think that they've received? And then in the aftermath, like, because we're, like after the event, obviously, hours and hours and hours go by, and people are still calling, checking on loved ones. People are still calling 911 or that local sheriff's office or police department or whatever, or fire department, just trying to figure out where their loved one is, if anybody's been recovered yet, if there are any survivors. And it's in the news cycle, it's probably a good, it's very significant. Obviously, it's probably a good 2 or 3 day story that's going to be the top story. It fades out of the news cycle, though, eventually. I mean, they'll come back to it once NTSB comes back with their investigation and all that. These people that are taking the 911 calls, and I'm not taking away from the families who lost someone in this whole thing, but the first responders that actually have to go in the water and pull people out, and the people that have to answer the 911 calls and the non-emergency calls, they're definitely, that's going to stick with them for the rest of their lives. There's no question about it. They're definitely heavily affected by this, and I hope that we keep them close to us, because that's who we are. That's kind of us, and that's what the show represents. John, what did you take away from any of that?
Well, first of all, I just wonder what happened. You mentioned that the cargo ship was overextending its engines trying to get away from the piling. Normally, when a big boat like that is leaving a port, there's tugboats or pilot vessels that are assisting with that. So I just wonder, kind of where the blame is going to be laid. But yeah, thank goodness that was at 1 a.m. and traffic was low. Baltimore is a very busy city. I've been there very, very many times. It's very bustling. I'm sure that they're still in emergency mode there. They're probably suspending other services just to handle the volume of 911. That's the thing, too, is that it's not just what's happening on the river there and with the bridge. Baltimore is still one of the most dangerous places on earth. We've still got lots of crime going on, medical emergencies, and responses to these other things are going to be curtailed just within 911. I'm not talking about police and fire, but I don't have necessarily time to take a full emergency medical dispatch with pre-arrival instructions and everything on there if 911's continuing to ring possibly for a bridge-related disaster while we've got this nursing home or wherever the situation is that has this other emergency. So they're on their heels there for sure. I'm sure they're having a very bad time in Baltimore, and we hope that the situation levels off and stabilizes, but they're going to be in emergency mode for a couple of days. I think that's what most people don't realize, is that the initial shock comes out in the news and we have our initial response, but the volume is going to continue to be high, and they're going to be functioning at an emergency level for a while there, I would guess.
Yeah, it's like a wet coat in winter. It sticks with you. So here, or it sticks to you. It sticks on you. Here, let's watch the rundown, and then there's a poignant picture towards the end of the second one I have that I want to.
Search and rescue operation is underway after a container ship slammed into the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore overnight. The bridge collapsed into the Patapsco River, severing one of the key transportation arteries in the city. That's going to cause major congestion, not just in the city of Baltimore, but also up and down the East Coast ahead of the busy Easter holiday weekend. Port traffic in and out of one of the nation's busiest ports is suspended. Investigations are ongoing into the actual cause of the event, although at this time officials say there is no sign of any nefarious intent.
This is a unthinkable tragedy. We have to first and foremost pray for all of those who are impacted, those families. Pray for our first responders and thank them, all of them working together, city, state, local, to make sure that we are working through this tragedy.
All right, so it kind of hits home to me being in Tampa Bay, because the same thing happened in the mid 80s here, or late 80s possibly. There was another historical event that happened like a day later, because I remember watching a documentary about something very significant that happened in the news, and then on the same page, the headline was like, Freightliner or tanker runs into Sunshine Skyway. We have this huge bridge called the Sunshine Skyway Bridge, and what happened, it was very similar. This bridge coming through, or this boat coming through the middle of the night, and I'm not talking about just like a boat, it's like a ship coming through the middle of the night, hit a piling or hit part of the bridge. And to everyone's horror, people going over the bridge at the time have no warning when this is happening, and then all of a sudden there's just no road, so they kind of plummet. And I know that freaks people out, because a lot of people have this phobia of bridges. But I mean, let's figure the odds of it happening. It's the bridge is so well traveled. Both the one in Baltimore and the one here they're so well traveled that it's happened 2 times in history. I know it's happened elsewhere. The thing that reminds me, or there were a lot of guys when I first started working where I was that were around, that were actually, deputies or part of the recovery or whatever. They later in life became my majors and my captains and, colonels and such. But they were actually there. There was a large commercial carrier, like a bus. I want to say it was Trailways. I don't know for sure. I don't remember. But their concern was the footage that was on the news. They wanted people from our office to get out there and put a tarp over the bus.
Yeah, they don't want their stock to tank or whatever. I don't know if Trailways is a publicly traded company, but all they care about is their image.
Yeah, right. So this is kind of reminiscent of that. I mean, like, this is a major, like, oh my God, but it also kind of brings into reality, like, are we really conscious of our own infrastructure? And those are conversations we can have later, but here's another report from the Wall Street Journal.
Our first unit arrived on scene and reported a complete collapse of the Key Bridge. We were also given information at that time that there were likely multiple people on the bridge at the time of the collapse, and that as a result, multiple people were in the water.
So that's what it looks like during the day there, John. You could just see, 2 spans there, and Oh man, it's just a freaky, kind of a freaky event. But look at the size of the bridge in comparison to the bridges. I mean, look at the size of the ship in comparison.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm guessing that they probably had a special navigator on board, someone that pilots the ship in and out of the harbor. So you have to wonder what happened there, because there's people who are specially trained. They know the depth of the water. They know where the channel is dug for a
Yes.
vessel that large, and they'll actually be navigating the ship until it reaches blue water or deep water. So I just wonder what the heck happened, because their entire career is about making sure that that doesn't take place.
If you'll notice too, like in this photo that we have up, or the end of the video that we have up, it's those cones are, it's very poignant to me that those cones are like perfectly placed in the center line, which indicates there was bridge construction. So some of the reports I read, like in the Wall Street Journal, talked about how there was that bridge is shown live on YouTube, like on a international webcam or whatever. And there was a spate of traffic right before it happened. And traffic was pretty light when it happened, but that doesn't take away from the, whatever handful of cars that were on there. That's just terrifying. But the fact that there was construction going on the bridge at the time obviously helped limit the amount of traffic that was on there. It's all just very like, I don't know, morbid, or it's hard. It's hard to fathom. And then, just both the mayor and that fire chief just talked about, like, you're going to have first responders that are affected by this. You're going to have families exponentially that are affected by this for generations to come. I mean, it's just it's a huge disaster in that area.
It's going to cause a lot of problems too. Like they said, not just after this is over, but with the bridge being out, it's a major thoroughfare. Traffic's going to be affected for hundreds of miles. Just anyone who's ever driven from Washington, D.C. to Baltimore up through Philadelphia and all that area. It's all basically one conglomerate of roadways, and traffic's going to be affected throughout. And why do I say that? Not to liken traffic congestion to the lives of the people who are lost and who are suffering there, but it's going to cause additional problems. There's going to be more crashes. There's going to be more traffic. There's going to be more headaches, and ultimately it's going to be harder on 911 dispatchers just over the long run. And that's not something that we'll measure, but it's something that we'll inherently feel. It's just that we're busy, and then it'll increase burnout and stress. And
yeah,
it's going to have a big impact on a lot of people. And first and foremost, of course, is the families of anybody who is hurt or injured and
right,
or missing at this time. I don't even know, but huge tragic event out there. And we always hate these things because this is always something that feels like it could be prevented. But life is happening. I guess that's all I can say about that.
Yeah, I am definitely with you, because one of the first things that came to mind was the fatigue that goes along with this. Like after, how many hours of having to deal with this, or how many days straight, or how many months straight, like the accumulation of the trauma that they're dealing with is just, it's going to wear people down. I mean, it's natural.
If you don't mind, I know that last week we had Drew Breezy's Full Auto, where basically you just had therapy right here on the air. Everything that you're mad about, we just vented it. We started talking about Pittsburgh and how they're changing their schedule. And then at the end, we're like, leave cops who are fighting for their weaves in New York alone. We kind of went all over the place. This week's another week like that, except without maybe so much emotion. There's a lot going on in the world, and we do our best to prepare for this show. And in so doing, we come across a lot of things that are interesting, but we don't think that could carry an entire episode. Things that we could mention, cover, talk about, and like, well, that's something that we could do in the first 10 minutes. I've got a bunch of cool stuff here that I want to share, and just so that we're not bogged down in the sadness and stuff that's going on in Baltimore, I don't want our entire show to be that. I wanted to talk to you about a story. This is from sfgate.com, or the San Francisco Gate, maybe that's the name of it, because Bay Area and state news. A California woman is missing after making a confused 911 call from the desert. That's by Andrew Charmings. This came out just March of this year, just actually 2 days ago. Amanda Nenigar made a 911 call the day before she was reporting missing. 26-year-old California woman is missing under unusual circumstances after making a 911 call from an area near the Arizona border 4 weeks ago, Arizona and California border. Amanda Nenigar of Blythe, California, was reported missing on February 28 and was last seen in a pink hooded sweatshirt driving her 2010 blue Toyota Camry, authorities said in a statement. The day before she went missing, Nenigar made a 911 call in which she called California Highway Patrol 911 dispatchers saying she was stuck in a ditch and gave her location, but a mix-up between authorities may have resulted in officers searching the wrong place, according to KPHO. This is what she says. I'm like kind of in a valley, Nenigar can be heard saying on the call, which was released by authorities last week. I climbed to like a high mountain and I'm wearing pink. So first of all, this woman's missing, so I don't want to make too light of her. She's making some bad decisions here, and I think that's why I want to say this, but telling a 911 dispatcher you're in a valley is the least helpful thing you could possibly say. There's a joke on The Simpsons where Chief Wiggum is trying to tell dispatch where he's at, and he's like, I'm directly under the Earth's sun now. And it's like, we have no way of figuring that out. And also, we're talking Arizona, California border, and we're saying, oh, you're in a valley. You were in a valley, and now you climbed up on top of a hill and you're wearing pink. I don't know who you think can see you. Line of sight, a person disappears from sight, on a clear day in conditions like that, even on sitting on top of a mountain, you're not going to be seen even a mile away. Your vehicle might be visible with the lights on at night 3 miles away. Nenigar's car was found on March 7th in a remote area south of Cibola in La Paz County, Arizona. Authorities said the car's back wheel was reportedly stuck on a large boulder, and it was just a mile from the coordinates she shared in the 911 call. But California authorities had been searching in the wrong area some 30 miles away, according to the outlet. I don't know how we got it 30 miles wrong. That is concerning. I wanted to say first, before we move on, this is something that is very common where I live, where people get stuck in the snow and they make the decision to abandon their vehicle because they believe they can see a city close by or something. Particularly if you're driving at night, the lights of a city nearby could be extremely deceiving. You'll see lights reflected off the clouds or whatever, and you'll believe that you can walk that distance. That distance could be as many as 24, 30 miles away. And if you're walking over uneven ground, you're talking about an 8-hour walk, which you're not necessarily going to survive in the weather. But if someone is searching for you, they're going to find your car. Case in point, we found this lady's car, but we did not find her. The best thing you can do is stay in your vehicle. And if elements are an issue, whether you're trying to survive the cold or the extreme heat, they say if you leave your vehicle and you're dealing with exposure, your chances of survival drop 50%. Drew?
I question the wording. I don't know if that was just you adding it, if it's in the article, but police were searching in the wrong area. What do you mean? Like, how about police were searching? And obviously it's in the wrong area because they didn't recover her, but she didn't know where she was. So like, if the person that we're looking for doesn't know where she is,
it's extremely frustrated. I actually took a call, my last call of the night last night, and I had good rapid SOS location data that was being backed up by my alley data that I was taking off the phone. And a woman was telling me that she was stuck in the snow. And at first I said, where are you? And she says, I have no idea, which is frustrating. Then I said, I try to establish any kind of geography. I'm like, okay, so where are you going? Work. I say, I obviously have no idea where you work. Can you tell me where that is? And she tells me where it is. I'm like, okay, so where were you coming from? She tells me that she was coming from this big town 30 and 45 miles away. And I said, well, what's the route that you took to get there? Well, I don't know. Well, in where I live, you can drive a bunch of different routes together. So I said, well, did you take such and such street and then drive straight out west and then, hang a left on this one? She goes, yes, that's exactly what I did. And then all the identifiers she gave me for that route were completely wrong. I'm like, so what you actually did was you never went that direction. You went south and then you hung a right and went this way. And then we finally took forever. And I could see where she's at this entire time, but I have no idea to explain where she's at. I'm like, so did you miss your street, or why is it that you're already past your destination? Because she had already outdriven to the place she was going to. She had passed it. She couldn't explain it to me. I'm asking her what kind of vehicle she's in. a Ford. Not helpful. I ask her name. She tells me her first name. I always have to beat a last name out of people all the time. I think I'm getting off into the weeds here, but and then we get to the end. I'm like, okay, so what can we help you with? I'm stuck, and I'm like, I know that.
So am I.
What would you like? And she goes, I would like to get unstuck. There's a certain level of helplessness, and I get that maybe not everyone's geared up to survive the Darwinian tussle that is life, but when you're setting out into dangerous situations, whether you're driving across my state at night trying to go to work and it's snowing, or if you're driving through the California Arizona desert, you maybe need to not be so reliant on emergency response, because there's always situations in which we're just not going to find you. We're not going to be able to respond. And I think it's important that we tell people not that we're going to let them down or that they can't rely on us, but it's just like no system is perfect. And if you're putting yourself in danger, you've got to be ready for that. You've got to have some common sense, meaning keep water in your vehicle if you're driving through the desert. Stay with the vehicle. Don't go out and think that someone's going to spot you wearing a pink hoodie on top of a mountain, which, first of all, again, not to make light of it because she's still missing, but is someone going to see someone standing on a mountaintop and like, oh, that person's wearing a blue hoodie? That's not her,
Right.
You're the only person out there. But let's kind of go to what is going to be the substance of a possible lawsuit. Nenigar's family now claims the CHP dispatcher bungled the call. She gave them her coordinates, California, and I don't know why they didn't transfer her dispatch to dispatch in Arizona. I don't know the particulars of where the call was taken by CHP or where the PSAP was, or if they have the capability of transferring a 911 call across state lines into Arizona. I live very close to a state line, and we have set it up so that we can transfer that call easily. But if we're dealing with vast stretches where our search parameters are even already off by 30 miles, it's entirely possible this PSAP does not have direct transfer capability. And why is that? It's because you're just going to have infinite PSAP transfer capability. It's the locale, anything that's nearby makes sense to have that. But you might be asking too much of a system there, particularly since I don't know where the call was taken. How would I handle this? Well, I have taken a 911 call. I've taken a call from a person that I thought was in my jurisdiction, and it turns out they were in Texas the entire time. It was a bizarre a psychosexual swatting that I was having to endure. I'll have to tell the whole story someday. But she was down in Texas. She was down in Fort Worth, I think. And so I've got a person in crisis, and she's in Texas. So what I do is I use the old teletype. I send a message to the answering, wherever the PSAP is in Fort Worth, and I let them know the person's name, phone number, their GPS coordinates, the nature of the complaint, the problem. And I sent them that information. I handed off the football. I can't transfer a call down to Texas or anything like that. I can only send them that information. So I could only assume that CHP dispatchers probably said, hey, you've got a person in distress. These are the coordinates, and sent them to the appropriate Arizona dispatch agency. This is not the first time someone's gone missing in Arizona or gotten stuck or lost. I have to imagine there's a normal process for this. So I'm not sure what went wrong. Amanda's sister, Marissa Nenigar, told KPHO she gave them her exact location and someone could have went and got her. They could have found her. Again, there just seems to be a lot of blame and not a whole lot of accountability there. She's on the side of the road, and she's somewhere where she can be found is on a road. A vehicle, police car might drive by at some point, but if she goes off the road and she goes up into a mountain to be seen from far away, she's actually reducing her chances there. CHP did not provide a statement on the case at the publication time. Amanda, sadly, has not been seen or heard from since. She's 5'3", she weighs 175 pounds, has blonde hair, blue eyes, and was last seen wearing a pink hooded sweatshirt, black leggings, black and white tennis shoes, and maybe carrying a pink purse. She has a rose tattoo on her right hand, according to the Department of Justice. Anyone with information should call the Paz County Sheriff's Office. Just very sad that that situation took place. I think that she did assume some of her own risk. I'm hoping she turns up. I don't know how you survive in the desert now, almost a month without water and surviving predators in the cold of night and possibly the heat of day. I have no idea how hot it is down there, but I hope that she turns up. But it doesn't look good at this point. But I'm a little upset that we're already getting ready to go into litigious mode. She has only been missing a month, and we're already getting on the news, and we're already blaming someone for not finding her and throwing stones at a system we don't understand. Drew?
That's part of the problem. We all need someone to blame, first of all, and it's never really on the person who needs the most blame. So here's the deal. I feel horrible for her. I think society has set us up to be this way. Like when the pioneers were on their wagons headed out west, they didn't have GPS coordinates and
No insurance either.
no insurance. They didn't have lawyers to sue the government, for
No jobs.
saving them. And so, maybe in 2024 you have a plan B in your car. And I'm not talking about the birth control method. Maybe you prepare a little bit better. And this really does get back to our Pittsburgh conversation, John, that police are too, I mean, society is too dependent on police. Like we cannot solve, they want magic. They genuinely, the people of this world want magic. And if magic does not occur, then it is somehow the cop's fault that he or she didn't perform magic.
That's what she said. She said she gave you your coordinates. You could have just gone and picked her up. And it's just like, it could be the case that someone else picked her up. I mean, that's something else that we could be talking about too. But
Yeah.
Staying with your vehicle, and if you have those GPS coordinates, not only calling 911 or whatever, but there's other resources out there. She could have also called a tow truck. Did that not
AAA.
call AAA? Call your sister to come get you if you have your GPS coordinates.
Yeah, I don't want to sound that callous. I mean, I mean it. Like there's sincerity behind it. Call AAA. Like, but I don't want anyone to think that I'm like, well, don't call the cops. Like that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is like, you're relying on the cops to do 100% of the work 100% of the time and get things 100% perfect 100% of the time. And there's a dispatcher that has to get, there's like 5 or 6 layers before it gets to the interaction between the officer and the person or the firefighter and the person. So there's going to be some breakdown of communication at some point. It's literally the telephone game. So do we really need to be this reliant on law enforcement, or do we need to be this reliant on a 911 dispatcher who's like, again, just like you're saying, John, like she's your woman in the snow is like, yeah, I went east and I turned left. Well, she went south and she turned right. And if we don't find her somehow, it's our fault. Like,
it's not just that, but the technology aspect of it. There's a certain uncertainty game that comes with your cell phone and cell phone towers. You want to know why we're searching 30 miles off. It could just be because we transposed a couple decimals in that if she was reading her GPS coordinates or however that came in, or if just because she's in the vast wilderness, it could be that the tower couldn't precisely locate, could not precisely locate her. And it might give you a GPS location, but then there's going to be an uncertainty radius around that. I've seen uncertainty radiuses of 30 miles, and just area equals pi r squared. So if you're off by 30 miles in a straight line, now you're talking hundreds and hundreds of square miles that you have to search. And like I said, the best place to start searching in those circumstances is on the road. So when you leave a road, you are massively increasing the amount of area that someone has to search for you. If you leave your vehicle, walk away from a road because you think you're going to be seen on top of a mountain, and it's not going to work. And I'm sorry she's missing, but it's less than a month, and we're already getting ready for the lawsuit, and we don't know if she's dead or alive or whatever. To me, it just feels a little premature, and I get that they're angry and looking for someone to blame, and maybe those feelings are coming out of the fact that you feel like it could have been prevented, like the bridge disaster, or that it should have turned out differently. But again, this is life happening, and life is not bulletproof, and we don't walk around with life jackets on all the time and have that life jacket be 911. Life is dangerous and bad things happen. Again, this is another kind of sad story. So why don't I play a fun, exciting video? This is something else that came up in my perusing. This is from Ohio. This is the story of a runaway van that's going through Ohio. It could just be that the van realizes it's in Ohio and is trying to get out as fast as possible.
I don't blame him.
I don't know, but I'm going to show a video. This is short and brief. It's pretty cool, but it's a 911 dispatcher helps calm down a woman who's obviously freaked out. If you are watching this on YouTube, it's a sight to see a minivan outpacing so many other vehicles. So I'll just go ahead and play it for you.
Just let her know I'm here behind her, and we'll get a good game plan and break the DRP. She's all the way over on the right-hand side. She can't get slowed down. She almost got me. She can't get slowed down.
Emergency brake's going to walk up the back wheel, so I'm not sure she's going to be able to control that slide.
Emma, this is Becky. I need you to listen to me right now, okay?
I'm trying and it won't do it.
Okay. She's tapping her brakes, it won't do it.
You're okay. Relax, relax, relax. Stand there.
First of all, I love that trooper who doesn't even put his hat on, but he's like, "Is a car in park? Okay, relax, relax, relax. You're fine. Get out of the car." It just pulls her out of the vehicle before she's even ready. So there's a couple issues with this. First of all, I guess good job to Becky. I like the way that she tried to use her name and try to establish a personal rapport with the caller to get her to listen. Sometimes if you feel like a specific person is in the situation with you, it gets you to listen a little bit. Using the emergency brake is not the prescribed method, I think, for stopping a vehicle that's at that rate of speed. The emergency brake, I mean, is for emergencies, but you got to understand how an emergency brakes works versus your other brakes. An emergency brake or a parking brake is really only meant to keep your vehicle from moving. If you're moving at 60, 70, 80 miles an hour, that was a high-speed chase, you're going to burn out or destroy your emergency brake at that rate of speed. I'm not a vehicle expert, but my advice to this caller would have been, can you switch the transmission into neutral? Because even if the engine's revving out of control at that point or your brakes are ineffective, as you can disengage the transmission and you're just going to coast to a stop.
I wonder if that was tried though. Like
I don't know. I also have to wonder how this happened in the first place. Okay, because it's not just that her brakes are totally ineffective, which is bonkers. Does her ex-husband hate her? You have to wonder. But did she have? Is there a problem with the cruise control? I think this was an issue a couple years ago where vehicles were there was something going on with a computer, a control module or something where it was not closing the fuel injectors. It would just pour in there, and they would be runaway vehicles. But obviously, very scary situation. Good job to that 911 dispatcher. Just an example of I actually like switching gears this hard between cases because we're talking about dealing with people in the water, people being lost in the desert, and runaway vehicles. As a 911 dispatcher, you will take these calls in succession. You will deal with them all in a day or in a week or whatever. And as a 911 dispatcher, you have to be ready to respond to all these situations. But the trooper was able to get there, verbally abuse her. Get out of the vehicle, you're fine, and take control of that situation. But it's just interesting and fun to see a 911 dispatcher kind of helping a situation, helping a person there. I would have said put it in. You wouldn't want to turn the vehicle off, of course, because then there's all kinds of electronic processes that are going on, like steering and things like that you actually need to maintain control of the vehicle. If she had attempted to turn the vehicle off, that would have been very bad.
Yeah, somebody would have hit her probably from behind, but I mean, or even the officer behind her. But I mean, when you're in that level of panic, though, like didn't they make a series of movies about this?
Oh yes, it was. I'm trying to remember. It's a movie about a bus whose speed cannot drop below 60 miles an hour, and if their speed drops below 60, then their speed will cause them to blow up.
Yeah, what was the name of that movie, John?
The Bus That Couldn't Slow Down.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
That's a Simpsons joke, everyone. Sorry, I'm full of like 90s Simpsons references. Anything before season 8. Drew also mentioned at the top of the show about viewer submission. It was one of our original callers, a longtime faithful fan of the show. He appears in this video, and I won't say who he is because I'm not sure that even though he has doxed himself by providing me with this video and sending it out and it appearing on social media, I'm not sure that he wants it to appear here. I told him that I would send it out and he didn't stop me. But a long, long time ago, Drew and I talked about the CARE program up in Seattle, which was them creating a whole new third branch of public safety which has to do with like mental stuff, right, Drew?
Mental stuff. Yeah.
Mental stuff.
It's
So-
it's the old proverbial send a social worker. And we, you know, we delved into it. If you want to go back, there's an episode called Does Seattle Really Care? I'm sure it's gonna be released soon if it isn't already on our YouTube page. But you know, we delved into it just to get to the bottom of what it actually means, because like a lot of people will just complain, like especially cops, like, yeah, okay, we'll send a social worker into that. That's not exactly what the program is. But you know, so we looked into it to see kind of what it was. I mean, there were elements that were not realistic, but there were also elements that were okay. Well, I mean, this could work. We've got to kind of try to figure out how we're going to do things, do more with less, and that's kind of what happened. And so BTRAV was part of this one.
It was, and something else I wanted to mention just before you see this is that my call was always, do social workers, mental health clinicians want to go to these things? Because no one asked them, right? In 2020, it's all like, well, you know, in all these situations, we shouldn't even be having police respond. It should be someone who has a background, someone who knows how to help someone who's in need. And no one asked the clinicians if they wanted to go. But now we know we've taken some time and we put together these units of multidisciplinary approaches to people in mental health crisis. So this is from Nevada County in California, and they're going to talk a little bit about their mobile crisis team.
By adding a second team, we have that co-responder model with a deputy and a clinician, and we're able to handle more dynamic calls for service when it comes to mental health with people that are in various forms of crisis.
So one thing about the mobile crisis team that I think people don't understand often is that our law enforcement partners are such a valuable part of that team. Oftentimes I think people rely on social workers, or they think they're the ones that have all of the skills in the situation, but so often our deputies, our local law enforcement have just incredible people skills and just the ability to build relationships. And oftentimes people don't want to talk to a social worker. Sometimes they prefer my law enforcement partner over me. So I think, you know, both are valuable assets, but they're equal assets.
It is truly 50-50 whether someone wants to talk to me or talk to the deputy. And our deputies are well trained and well versed in mental health issues and able to build rapport and show empathy just as well. And it's very interesting how many people have also had issues with crisis, hospital. There's a lot of trauma around being hospitalized, and often they feel safer with law enforcement.
There's a lot of examples of how the co-responder team has been utilized within the community, within the unincorporated portions of Nevada County, as well as at times within city limits. One example of our utilization was when Grass Valley PD requested our assistance for an individual who was standing on a ledge. This situation was pretty dynamic. They had numerous individuals there already on scene prior to our arrival, including some of their negotiators. And Stacy and I had the ability to speak to that individual for well over an hour, developing rapport and eventually getting them to come with us to a hospital.
Yeah, they were able to come down and come voluntarily, which is exactly what we wanted. No force used. So it was a very successful situation.
After we respond to those calls, we often do follow-up and go back out, see those people, provide them with the additional resources and supports that they might need.
The co-responder model that we have with a deputy and a clinician, it continues to be a very valuable tool that we have with the sheriff's office, and it continues to provide positive outcomes to all of the situations that we handle.
So special thanks to the Nevada County Mobile Crisis Team. I also noticed their Critical Incident Negotiations Team. Probably a good idea that you could change that from Critical Urgent Negotiations Team. It's good that you changed the acronym on that agency, but good job to those guys. It's interesting to see that the public will sometimes that they would prefer to talk to the cop. I think that's something that you and I probably would have never expected. That there's this huge outpouring that we need to have the mental health clinicians out there, and as it turns out, these clinicians are saying, half the time they want to talk to the cops instead. I think there's innate trust in that kind of authority, Drew, that maybe we totally forgot about. I'm like, when I'm remembering thoughts about trusting the police, like all of a sudden I'm remembering McGruff, the crime dog, and it's the 80s, and I just feel like I could trust the cops. And maybe some of that is still left over. Maybe people still, want that authority that they trust in that situation, and maybe they're not ready to talk to a counselor, but they'll be ready to talk to a cop.
It's just in perspective. It's Eastern California. It's northeast of San Francisco. It's on the Nevada border, Nevada border, and it's surrounded by it encompasses Tahoe National Forest, or that's within the county. So I think it's probably more. I'm going to offend a whole swath of people here. It probably appeals to the more like realistic California people.
Yeah, the Northern Californians, the ones who want to break off and form their own state.
Yeah, not the Sacramento set or the
San Francisco and below. Yeah,
right. The people without homes are victims. Therefore, we should leave the doors to the CVS unlocked, even when people aren't working there. Type people. The Gavin Newsoms, if you will. So I think there's probably reasonable and rational people everywhere. We just we only hear the loud, irrational people for some reason. But it doesn't surprise me that half of the people were like, "No, I'd rather talk to the cop." What kind of surprises me, and I hope nobody is offended by this, is that they were honest enough to say that. Like, look. You're sticking us in this program as social workers, and we're doing this job, and we're co-responding, and half the time they just want to talk to the cop. So then John, it does beg the question that we asked earlier and we asked last week: are people too dependent on law enforcement?
Yeah. It's amazing to me that we have to have a mobile mental health unit to respond to crises. It's amazing to me in the sense that as a civilian, that it's gotten that bad that we've got to have a group of people who go out, who are cops and clinicians, to respond to these things. On the other hand, I'm taking 911 calls from people who have some serious mental health issues. It seems to be pervasive in our society. I don't know that it was that way 100 years ago, and I don't know, maybe it was, and we just didn't talk about it. That's sort of like the ultimate, like, trying to figure out what the hell is wrong with us. If it's a phenomenon of social media, the internet, mass media, 24-hour news cycle, if we're disenfranchised from each other because of technology, if we have unrealistic expectations about life, if we have cultural pollution, societal decay, absence of fathers, cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria, could be lots of things. But I guess I'm not surprised, taking calls, that they've got to exist out there, Drew.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully my words aren't construed as being negative. I think it's an amazing program. I think that the co-responders, whether law enforcement or social workers that are working together to solve the issue, they're amazing people. Obviously, they're trying to make work something relatively new in both fields, I would think. The co-response. So hats off. What a great program. And I think a lot of cops are always going to be resistant to change. I mean, it's inherent in the profession for whatever reason, like, except when you offer a 10% raise, for some reason that just takes rather quickly. But, we got to do something. And you can talk to any county sheriff anywhere, anybody that's in charge of jails. John, this from your corrections background. What's the largest mental health facility in any town, city, county, state? It's a county jail. It's a city. Yeah, it's a county jail, a pretrial facility, or the state, the state penitentiary. Even a lot of the issues of people being in prison or being in jail awaiting trial are mental health driven issues. So having this intervention before it gets to the arrest phase, I think, is going to be beneficial either way. It's not just the critical incidents that like we focus on the critical incidents, the suicidal calls and all that. But people just sometimes need services, and we can get them services without having to put handcuffs on them. I mean,
I like that story where they diffused the situation and they got a voluntary committal. It's so much easier on the cops too when they don't have to do that paperwork and they don't have to fight the person the whole way, and they're not yelling and kicking and screaming in the back. And the orderlies come out with the big white T-shirts and all that, and the straight jacket and the dolly, and all the classic nut house stuff. I just thought it was great. We clearly it's a need in society that we've been talking about for a long time, that this gap between acute mental health care and law enforcement, and it seems like they're figuring it out. And for the people who don't like change, that don't like this approach, that don't like having mental health clinicians in your field, it's like they're there to save you grief, man. They're there to take on a problem that you never signed up for. I've had cops come into my office and say, like, it's not against the law to be crazy. I'm a law enforcement officer. What law am I enforcing every time I intervene in one of these crises? Well, there's people out there that have made their whole livelihoods acute crisis intervention. Why don't you let them ride along with you, and you can take care of the criminal stuff and the danger stuff. That's what you sign up for, and you can let them take care of the rest. And if you can get it done, then you just make all of cop kind look very good, Drew. So hats off to them.
Yeah, hats off to them. This is the same kind of in the same vein. I'm talking about what's happening in Pittsburgh. Like I said, organizational change is probably the hardest thing for any cop to grasp. And cops in the profession always down anything, a police chief is saying. And this police chief in Pittsburgh is talking about like cutting his staffing at night and all these other things. But it's innovation. It's like you've got to change the way you're doing business, because the way you're doing business is not working. So like you've got to give these things time, and you got to give them a try. And just because it's the way it's always been done does not mean it's always been correct. And that's one of my biggest, a lot of people in leadership say, that's the way we've always done it, is the worst thing you can say to somebody who has any kind of vision. Or, yeah, I get that's how you did it. It doesn't necessarily mean that it was the right way. It doesn't necessarily mean that it was the wrong way. And there's always a fail safe of going back to the status quo, but obviously something needed to change. And I guarantee the cops that are a part of this program are learning from those social workers, like a new skill set anyway. And those social workers are probably learning a new way to talk to people, just the same. Like you've got to be a wordsmith to be able to get somebody from suicide to the back of your patrol car without putting handcuffs on. It just again, this is not magic. It doesn't happen magically. So I think both professions are benefiting one another in this scenario.
I can't wait for the CBS drama Mind Cops, where they go out there and they're finally, we've already had all the other units on having their dick.
There was already a book called Mind. I think you're talking about something different.
Mind Hunter was about profiling. Yeah, this will be.
I was thinking Mein Kampf, but that's it.
Oh no, that wasn't a police book. That's not soon to be adapted into a CBS drama.
No.
Speaking of innovating the way that you're doing things, though, if you are calling 911 in Aurora, I believe this is in Illinois. Well, there's so many. There could be one in Colorado too. Hopefully, in the article they indicate what friggin' state this is in. Oh, it's in Colorado, Aurora, Colorado.
Okay.
This is from CBS News, the Columbia Broadcasting Service. If you call 911 in Aurora, police may text you response times and resources. Do I just throw up the little graphic at any old time? In any relationship, trust is built through communication, which is why the Aurora Police Department is now using technology to improve how they communicate with people who call them for help. And I thought this was amazing because they're finally going to be getting some real-time feedback. Aurora PD is now using software that has been giving those who call 911 and officers a pleasant surprise, which, when you're dialing 911, you definitely need a pleasant surprise, possibly the worst day of your life. And now, your house is burning down, your grandma's sneezing. Oh, this is great. This is so nice. Oh, it's so nice to have this. This is not only a great idea, but it actually works. Aurora Police Officer Chris Jewell, Division Chief of Professional Standards and Training, which is nice that he weighed in on it. It's called Spider Tech. Yes, SPIDR. They have to leave off the E. That way it sounds like something from the year 2000. Spider
Yeah,
Tech.
that way the spiders don't sue them.
Yes, that's obviously you don't want big spider coming after you. It's not just a failed Superman movie, it's also a corporate matter.
Big arachnid.
It's yes, it sends 911 callers a follow-up text message after they hang up, which I have been doing this recently. I had to do this last night with that lady that got lost. I tried calling her back to let her know, like, hey, the tow truck company who happened to have a rig in your area is going to send someone out to come get you. Couldn't get through to her. No idea why. I don't know if this is because she was very near where I live, so she was on the fucking moon. But I sent her a text message. I couldn't tell if she got it, but there was another call recently too where I couldn't understand someone on a 911 call, so I sent them an outbound text message with some instructions and things like this. And it's risky because you don't know if they're seeing that, if they're reading that, or if it's helpful. I'm not telling you that you can replace voice contact, but if you can't establish voice contact, why not send a text message? I say that to 911 operators and PSAP directors out there that you have the capability of sending outbound text messages with your phone. Why not do it? At least saying, I can't reach you, dial 911 again. At least something like that would be helpful. Anyway, the initial messages that we have, and in fact, received your call. So that's nice to know that after you talk to a 911 operator and they give you all the directions and everything, you get a little text like, hey, this is the real 911 and we definitely just talked to you. It's generating a call for service, and it also gives them more resources as well. So it might give them an online portal that they can go to, and they could do something online instead. So if someone dials 911 and they want to report that because they're a male too attractive to survive in their community and the other males are slashing their tires out of petty jealousy, there may just be a form that they fill out. That's what I had to do. Or it might be also supply some other community resources depending on the nature of the call, like here's the number for the jail, here's the number for the state's attorney's office, here's the number for the public defender. These are things, might be helpful for them. It also gives the caller a heads up if the officer is delayed. And in an era of defunding the police, you get what you get, Aurora. In an era when defunding the police, no, it doesn't say that. In an era when Aurora Police Department is struggling with staffing and response times. Oh, wait, no, I was right. That's because you defunded them. Or you defunded their spirit by the way that you all behaved in 2020. That alone can change the dynamic of a call. Quote, I think anytime people feel like they're being communicated with and being kept updated, it's beneficial for everybody, especially the community members, said Jewel. It's beneficial for our folks too, because it does help them more effectively do their jobs. And it does start off that contact on a more positive foot. I want to get your takes on this, Drew. I will finish the article here, but now we're telling people if the police officers coming to their call for service are delayed. Spider Tech will also continue to provide information about your call if a case report is filed, including a case number and the detective assigned to the case. That's kind of helpful if you can cut down on that routine kind of phone calls, like who's the point of contact for this case. It also provides a way for the caller to give feedback about their experience, which APD hopes to continue to help them build trust in the community. So far, it seems to be working. Here's what a caller said. I waited there until the police got there. Well, they have a new program, which I have to say I really like, said Robbie DeYoung, a woman who spoke in the public comment portion of the Aurora City Council's March 11th meeting. Gave me an option to rate his performance. Now, that was a bold move, and I thought that was wonderful. Drew, is there going to be a Yelp for cops before too long? Badge 986, rude, New York accent. Said he was too old for this shit.
Yeah.
I just want to
no, it's like I all I did was push my wife, and they arrested me. Like
all I did was go hands on with her, and all of a sudden I'm being charged with domestic battery. Spider Tech will be used primarily for report-based calls like a theft or a welfare check. It won't be sent out for messages or calls that need to be done in person, like homicide or sexual assault calls. That's good. When your son murdered, you dial 911, and then it gives you the pleasant surprise of the primary detective who's investigating the case
right.
and the case number, and then a list of like here's some grief counselors in the area, like that.
In my experience, John, homicide victims are the least communicative of the victims. Like they don't respond as well as the other victims most of the time.
Why would they? There's nothing that could be done to fix the problem.
True.
So what is your take on that though? And I don't know if Drew left or if Dewey left the building because he didn't throw up the graphic at any point. I guess I'll throw it up there. I'll do it. There's the police tracker that Dewey made in the style of Domino's Pizza. For anyone who's ordered a Domino's Pizza, you could track the progress of your officer in real time. And here's the CAD commands that we're all familiar with as dispatchers of police officers assigned en route on scene. Kick-ass arrest.
Yeah,
that's the progress of your call. Thank you to Dewey for making that, and thank you to Dewey for going upstairs and probably eating a bowl of grape nuts right now. But Drew, what do you think about tipping your hand? Could there be tactical drawbacks for cops? Could we be seeing blowback as people in the public finally figure out that, like, hey, there's not a police officer who can be tasked to your call or assigned to your call? Or what do you think the negative outcomes of this could be?
Let's like deal with this in silos. First, I don't think it's ever a good idea to give away the position of a law enforcement officer.
Even to dispatch, because then we know that you're just fucking around.
No. If this is done in real time, like if this is updating in real time, I'm not sure that it's a good idea just for the criminal element to know that. Like, let me give you an example, and this is going to be just slightly off track of what we're talking about, but it was always my pet peeve when I was getting ready to either fight with somebody or deal with somebody or make an arrest, like a dangerous, high risk arrest. And I ask, where's my backup, or like, hey, could you have my backup step it up or whatever? And the dispatcher would come back with, hey, John, what's your ETA? I hated that. I still hate that, because what that does is it forces you, John, to say, I'm like 7 minutes out.
Yeah. Drew, you're on your own. Like,
right. At which point the bad guy goes, all right, I got 6 minutes and 50 seconds to whip this guy's ass.
Mm-hmm. That might change their whole approach, make them more aggressive, might make them take flight in a situation where you can't chase them. Could be.
It's the same. So it'd be the same with a victim. Like when you're dealing with a victim, like if you're, if you need to finish the job, so to speak, that the cops are 30 seconds away, or maybe you can hide the evidence at that point. But we're taking this to extremes. I understand. So then let's look at the other silo where it's just like with the Pittsburgh situation. What this creates, like, why aren't we leveraging AI? Like everybody else is using it. I'm not saying replacing us with AI, but there are elements of our job that AI can solve. Now, I don't think you should ever lose the human contact in just like you said, if for whatever reason they can just reestablish the 911 call, we should never lose that. Like if they need to speak to a human being, they need to speak to a human being. This is not like,
could you imagine someone dialing 911 and it says, thanks for dialing 911. Your call is important to us. So the caller, the grandma's on fire. Representative.
Oh, I heard your hair is on tires. Is that correct?
Is that correct? Again, 90 Simpsons reference. Thank you for dialing 911. Our options have changed. If you know the crime, please hit it now. And Bart hits 4 numbers. You have selected regicide. If you know the name of the king or queen being murdered, press 1. I think we're intelligent now. We're past the system of pressing numbers for options.
No, I get that. So, but
we could have them answering the initial call, and if it's an ask style, it could be maybe cued to something where it's just listening before it gives it to a human caller. And whereas if we hear screaming, like it's just going to immediately disconnect AI and go straight to the person. You know what I mean?
Right. So there also used to be. So what I'm saying is that is going to reduce, because most of the common questions are like, it's somebody calling back on their barking dog call, like, hey, are they coming or what? And they could get an answer if they just click the link. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, we got you. We're a little busy. You don't have to have a human tell you that. And then if there's a change in the status of the case, like, no, the dog is now mauling an entire nursery, then yeah, okay, so we're going to step it up there. But you always had the option to get back in. So it's a reduction in phone calls. It's the same thing with Pittsburgh. It's a reduction in phone calls. You leverage the AI so that we don't have to answer the phone as much. So when we do answer the phone, we can devote more attention to what's happening. And is there a percentage that's going to slip through the cracks? Yes, there's always going to be a percentage that slip through the cracks. Now, the final part of this, the Yelp, so to speak, the Yelp part of this, I got to tell you, John, this has been happening for decades. We have been doing customer satisfaction surveys. We've been doing fear of crime surveys within neighborhoods. It's what used to kind of gear the agencies, not necessarily the. It's a tool that the agencies can use to effectively manage their personnel. So it's not necessarily, like a lot of guys would take that. A lot of cops would take it personal when the lieutenant would call back somebody that they just left and say, "Hey, did everything go okay? Were the officers polite? Are you getting, do you feel that you could call back and get the same level of service?" General customer service questions. That's very necessary in a customer service driven profession. And whether people like that or not, whether cops like that or not, that's what we are. We are customer service driven. Therefore, if there are areas that we need improvement on, or there are areas we need to stay away from, then that's really kind of the only way you're going to do it. You're going to have to solicit that information somehow. And this is an automated way of doing that. I think I'm fine with it. Now, the only other drawback is, in the Yelp effect, I don't know if you've ever heard like how heavily reliant you are, but I travel a lot, so I like to look at the hotels before I pick them. And it just does seem to me that most reviews you read are bad reviews. So it begs the question, if there are 1,000 people that stay at that hotel and 30 had a bad experience, are you only reading 30 bad experiences and not the 970 good experiences? And I guarantee that's what's going to end up happening a lot, because people can get bold with that keyboard. They don't have to talk to a lieutenant, or they don't have to talk to a desk, guy, or even a dispatcher. They don't have to talk to a human voice who's going to interact with them that might explain stuff. They're just going to get venomous with their keyboard and say how horrible, it's a 1-star rating. And, speaking of ratings, you can leave us a 5-star rating and review, but on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. But, this could happen in the profession. So it could happen with the Domino's police app that we're talking about here. I'm sure there's a plan for that, though. You know what I mean?
I guess I just worry that you give people a platform, they're going to stand on it. And police officers are already being criticized from all sides, whether it's the media, the politicians, or whatever. And calls for service are different, right? So like if you have a mom and a police officer comes and breaks the window and rescues the kid out of the car, she's going to love that police officer. If you're dealing with like a noise complaint and an officer can't resolve it because the noise ordinance isn't in effect for another 2 hours, then they're mad that the police officer didn't do anything. You're going to be seeing, these Yelp reviews or whatever, whoever's looking at this, the commission, the command staff or whatever. And it's going to generate complaints that they're going to have to investigate or look into. Otherwise they're negligent. It's part of their quality assurance, right? They're getting this negative feedback. They have to spend time investigating it, when really just people are not always going to be happy that the police either didn't take their side in a complaint, or they were not able to enforce a law, or they had to respect everyone's rights. And everyone only cares about themselves. They only want the law enforced on other people and never on themselves. And I'm worried that it's just going to create that you're only going to get negative Yelp reviews. And I just feel like we already have enough avenues of criticism for police officers as it is. People call me all the time. Not all the time, because I work for a great agency, but people will call me and say that they're not happy with such and such police officer. I think anyone who's really that mad and has a legitimate complaint already has the avenue, which is picking up the phone and talking to the supervisor.
Or social media. I mean, it's the same, but the thing is, like, we are a cynical bunch when you talk about first responders. So we're assuming that that's what it's going to get used for. But, and I always joke, and this, like, how many people, John, have you answered the 911 for that were like, "Hey, I'm just calling to thank you guys for saving my life"? It doesn't really happen. People don't call 911. It does happen, but I mean,
twice in 9 years, and one time a person thanked me, and I had to tell them I couldn't save them, and they're like, "Thanks anyway. I appreciate you anyway." And it was like, I hope that person doesn't die. It's the last thankful person on earth.
if you look at social media accounts of a lot of these law enforcement pages, to include YouTube or Facebook, there are plenty of positive people out there. There are plenty of positive commenters that are saying good things about law enforcement. And just, it's the old Carabas test that I used to say, like, during COVID or towards the end of COVID, everybody hated the cops because of George Floyd. Everybody hated the cops because of COVID and having to enforce masks, which we never did. Nobody ever did that. We didn't anyway. And then, so we go to a Carrabba's, the supervisors on my platoon, and I sat down at a Carrabba's. Within 5 minutes, somebody dropped a $25 gift card on our table. And unbeknownst to probably the people that were getting ready to leave and pay their bill, somebody else dropped another, $25 or $50 gift card. Like, hey, we appreciate you. We appreciate you. So there are plenty of positive people in this world that appreciate what the police officers do, and they appreciate the profession. Is it a matter of them taking the 2 minutes to say, to do the customer satisfaction survey at the end? I don't know. We'll see. I mean, it remains to be seen, but I think all of that can be taken with a grain of salt too. So
the funny part is I played a video like maybe many months ago, but it was about a 911 caller. There's someone trapped in a closet, and the 911 dispatcher, like if they're bad and they don't know what to do, and the dispatcher doesn't send anyone, the police aren't going. And the guy's in the closet, and he's like, I think my wife just got shot. And he goes like, oh man, I'm going to send you this link. And he goes, okay. What does it tell me what to do? He goes, yeah, you can leave me a review on there. And it's just like, I can't believe we're at the point now. Eventually this is going to be rolled out for me, right? Like, did you enjoy your 911 experience? And
it's coming. It'll be part of the QA, but
I'm not going to enjoy that, Drew, because I'm someone that just bails your ass out of the fire. I'm not the most overly, I don't have time to be overly friendly and empathetic to people. I take care of business.
And to your point, John, like, how about the sister of the girl in the pink hoodie? Like, is she going to type her review? Is she going to say, they spent $1.3 million on helicopters, an entire search and rescue team. They combed, 600 square miles of desert. They worked with multiple state agencies along the state lines, but unfortunately they were unsuccessful in finding my sister? Or is she going to say, can't say a whole lot, getting ready to sue their asses, they killed my sister?
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen? I mean,
I guess, like I said, we already deal with that society where people are complaint oriented and litigious, and we have a serious gratitude problem in this country. That's a whole other episode, but I think it's going to be an issue. I also wanted to say, Drew, you seem very unlikely to have ever used the Domino's Pizza app.
No, I've used it several times.
Okay, so because I thought you only liked local pizza, but
I do only like local pizza. There are times when you're somewhere not local that you don't know who to trust, first of all, but second of all, I've had Domino's here. Like, I get a hankering for Domino's every once in a while.
Sorry, I didn't mean to presume, but anyway, when they show you the real-time location of your driver coming through your neighborhood, the driver always knocks on your door before the app shows you that they're there. So I'm hoping that if they ever do something as stupid as real-time location, that there's going to be some delay and that the cops are already kicking in the door for the no-knock warrant. Before the app shows that they're going to be
like the question, do they, there was for a while a series of robberies of pizza delivery people. I wonder if they were just following them on the app, knowing when they're about to show up.
Sometimes they even tell you what vehicle they're in. So I'm kind of surprised that doesn't happen more often with Ubers, because they tell you the license plate and the
right, but it's all done by credit card now. You know what I mean? It's not so you have to identify yourself by using a credit card. 1, 2, the driver doesn't carry any cash. It's all done by credit.
First of all, they might. I used to deliver pizzas as late as 2018, and I was forced to carry a large amount of cash on me.
Yeah, that's pizza. And 1 and 2, like, your county is a sheriff's office / pizzeria.
Yes, it was 2020, and we were defunded, and they needed somebody to run those pizzas, so they naturally took us out of the Comm Center. So
I got it.
Yeah, government pizza is probably one of the worst pizzas you can get. We're talking about how change is never good. We'll never make those pizzas better. I don't care. Folks, the after show is coming up next. If I want to do the after show, if you are just listening and you don't know what the hell I'm talking about with the after show, that's because you have always missed out on the chats when we're live on YouTube. I'll get into the chats during the show, and I'll talk to the people who are in our wonderful audience, people like Abby, people like Faulkner, people like Melanie, what have you. And we decided to get together after the show. And so what is the after show? It's a free, open, there's no agenda. I basically take people's comments and I respond to it. They call me. You may remember a version of Comm Center where people called in. That version apparently still exists, but now it's just the after show because no one will call and leave a voicemail for this show. So if you are just a listener, we encourage you to watch us on YouTube because the after show content is not something that's going to translate well into a podcast. That's not something that we're going to be putting out on Spotify or iTunes at any point. It's totally the joy of the after show is its interaction. So you could interact directly with me and talk to me pretty much about anything. Like we've talked about like medical things and gap insurance for vehicles, and we tried to play a game about movies, and it's really just open-ended, and it's our way of saying thank you to the audience and interacting with you. So if you are listening, we encourage you to check us out. Our YouTube show is, of course, Thursday night at 8/7 Central. You should hit like and subscribe on the YouTube, and you should be watching us every week and be a part of the after show. We always appreciate it. And Drew stops by in the after show, and sometimes I get incredible guests like Dewey, who last week told us the story of meeting Will Smith, which was a brilliant story beyond comparison. I really couldn't believe the major twist in that story.
Yeah.
Also, people who are also in my sphere, Kendra, Jake, other people, they tend to show up in these things. So if you like other podcasts that I do, it's just a fun time. Other than that, you can reach out to us, like I said, on Instagram. What Say Drew, difficult to look at pictures, in the Comm Center. Those are all places to reach us. We're on Facebook. You can find us on Facebook. Leave us a 5-star rating review on iTunes, and on Spotify, you can leave a 5-star review. Here's a customer review from Apple Podcasts, since we're going to be looking at Yelp reviews for cops soon. This is for Bruno Murphy, 5 stars. Good stuff. Love this podcast. So that's exactly the kind of deep thing that we love on there. Drew, I'm gonna go ahead and go off script here a little bit. I'm announcing a contest. If you leave us a 5-star rating and review anytime after March 26th, 2024, we're looking for as many 5-star rating and reviews on iTunes that we can get. Even if you don't listen on iTunes, you just use Spotify. Set up a whole account, give Apple all of your important information so that you can leave us a review. And then 1 month from today, April 26th or thereabout, I'm going to have Dewey randomly select one of the submissions or whoever's best, or if it's the only submission. And I'm basically going to send you in the mail a box of swag. We'll reach out to you if we can, and we'll announce who the winner is. And then we'll send you a box of swag, whether that's drawings, whether it's merch. I've got a signed picture of Drew Breezy behind me that I drew and he signed when we were at our meetup last year. Anything that I can think of that you're going to think is cool, whether that's artwork or maybe a piece of the set that I'm not sentimental about, who knows? But I'm going to send you some kind of swag, some kind of something as a thank you. So between now and 1 month from now, leave us a 5-star rating and review, and you will get some kind of something from me. We would appreciate it. Drew, did you want to on the spot be put into an uncomfortable position where you're forced to comply with this contest?
No.
All right. So Drew's not going to have any part of it. Drew's not going to send
Yes,
you.
I'll have part of it. I have something left. I mean, I still have an item to deal with if we're going to talk.
You could send that book that you were supposed to send to me that you never did. I have a copy. I'm just saying you could send it to me and I could send it to him. That was the Ricardo's book, the I Am 911. Yeah. We could send you a copy of that, and I would sign it.
Imagine Listening. It's called
Imagine Listening. Thank you. And maybe I'll write a little story in there so that you have something personal for me to add to the book or something.
Great.
I'll make it good. I've never let you guys down before.
All right. So this beautiful woman you see on the screen here has left us. Her name is Erin Massaro McDowell. I'm sorry. Let me get this right. Her name is Erin Massaro McDowell. Her husband is a deputy sheriff. She was a dispatcher with the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. I don't recall seeing any tributes on the public page of the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, although I'm not going to get into the politics of that or call it into question because I don't know. Maybe they want this private. I tend to not think so because this is all stuff I pulled from Facebook. Erin worked in the communication center when I worked up there, when I was running the place. She's a wonderful human being. And she did this very lengthy post one day where she was like, and to be, for timeline purposes, it was on March 16th. Okay, so she's saying, I'm sharing this, wondering if anybody like this that has happened to anybody else. She said that she'd been to urgent care 3 times, and it's just like going through this whole litany of problems that she's had and all the different doctors that she's gone to. And, you know, some have, they took a CT of her head, some have called it an ear infection, some have done this, and some have done that. So then eventually what happened was Erin was unconscious and remained in the hospital. And her husband, Micah, the deputy, said, update on my sweet Erin. After several more scans, doctors were able to locate a blood clot causing a blockage in one of the 2 basilar arteries in her neck, leading to her brain. The blockage was preventing the much needed oxygen, resulting in her having strokes and other complications. So, you know, without going the rest of the way into that, she sadly passed away like 3 or 4 days later. She was 39 years old. She deserves all of the same. She gave the same that any other cop gave, that any other firefighter gave. And she's, you know, I hate when people say just a dispatcher. She was a dispatcher, and she gave the same amount of trauma, and she gave the same amount of heart and soul. And like if you look at her Facebook page, you see like just less than a month ago, she was promoting the sheriff's office website. You know, our communications personnel handled 80,550 calls for service in February alone. Like, she was a company person. Her husband worked there too. And here's one of the telling posts. Your peace is one of the most precious things you own. Decide that no one can take it from you today. So no one took her peace, hopefully, but but God has chosen to take Erin from us, and God rest her soul. I hope that her family finds resolution. It's got to be very tough on them, and she deserves all of our respect. If you happen to be on Facebook and you find the name Erin Massaro McDowell or her husband Micah McDowell, there's some very heartfelt tributes on there. Maybe drop them a line and make sure that they understand how loved we are, or how loving we are as a community, as a dispatcher community or first responder community. And it's not just empty words. I think a lot of times administrators can say things like, well, we're just one big family. And then in the same vein, they can post things about being in the Pride Parade or being in the catching a burglar, but overlook putting a nice little tribute to Erin and her husband on the same Facebook page. So again, I'm not calling them out because I don't know the facts. I don't know that they wanted to keep that private or not, but those things are factual. So stick with giving your heart and your thoughts to Erin and her family. And everybody needs to kind of take care of their own health. And if your body is trying to tell you something, listen to it and get it fixed, get it worked out. The profession, first responder in general, but especially in a communication center, this cortisol and these stress hormones are going to do very weird things to your body and your brain. So make sure you're taking care of yourself. That's all I got.
Thoughts and prayers to Erin and her family, both gold and blue and blood. That's a big loss. And thinking about you, 39 is way too young. And I say that even though I'm 39 and I always talk about how I'm too old. There's plenty of life left, and she didn't get to live that out, and it's going to be a huge loss for her and her family and her community. And So we are thinking about her. I wanted to just take a page from Conrad Weaver because it's always a safe place to go. But just remember to intentionally engage with each other. Put down the phone. Talk to each other. Remember that your life is happening right now. Don't be somewhere down the road later looking back wishing that you had spent it differently, because today is the day that you can saddle a new horse and take a new trail and go a different direction, and you can start over today, tomorrow. You don't have to be stuck with wherever you were at yesterday. Take care of yourself. Dispatching is a tough job. Being a cop is a tough job. It's not going to get any easier no matter how much technology we bring into it. Thanks for listening to the Comm Center. We appreciate you guys every single week. If there's an after show, I'll see you for the after show. Otherwise, we'll catch you back here next week.